In the last lesson, we brought a few assets from a different project that we downloaded from Fab Asset Library. It was a project made by Kitmesh 3D, which involved some very high quality sci-fi assets that we could use in our scene. So in this lesson, we're going to continue to build up our scene, and we're going to copy a few of these mountains and place them in the back. And then we're going to bring in a few more assets from Fab Asset Library to build up the scene. Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to select this mountain, and I'm going to press and hold Alt on my keyboard, and then I'm going to press and hold the left mouse button to copy this asset and then place this thing in the background. I'm going to scale this thing up, move this thing just about there, bring this up on Z, and as you can see, it looks pretty good in our camera preview. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to create a copy of this asset and rotate it like so. And then move this thing a little bit on Y and perhaps bring this thing down on Z as well. Let's see how this looks like from the camera preview. I'm not sure, but I think it looks pretty okay. Let's try a different orientation. Yeah, I think now it looks much better. Let's create another copy because we still have this empty area to cover. I'm going to move this playhead and let's see how this thing looks like from here. Perhaps bring this thing just a little bit up on Z. Yeah, I think it looks good there. Let me enlarge this window and let's see. Yeah, I think it looks good. Let's move to frame number 1. I'm going to save everything. Let's now split the screen, and I think we should now organize the outliner, okay? So what I'm going to do in here is to select these 3 mountains, and I'm going to move them to a different folder. Let's rename this folder as Rear Mountains. I'm going to hide this thing, and I'm going to do the same thing in here as well. Let's select these mountains in the front, and I'm going to move them to a different folder. Let's rename this as Front Mountains. Okay, I'm going to hide them, and now I'm going to select these assets. And let's move them to a different folder. I'm going to rename this thing as Surface Assets. Okay, let's hide them. I'm going to select these 3 as well. Let's move them to Surface Assets, and I'm going to press Ctrl H to unhide everything. And yeah, okay, everything looks good. Let me hide this landscape, and let me enlarge this window because there is something that I want you to know at this point. Okay, let me just close these folders. Okay, we still have to create a folder for these Minerva assets. I'm going to select all of them from the outliner, and let's rename this as Minerva Assets. Okay, I'm going to save everything. Let me hide the rear mountains. Okay, so you can see that as for now, our scene looks pretty good at this point. But if I'll just unhide the rear mountains, you can see for some reason, it just doesn't make any sense. And what I mean when I say it doesn't make any sense is that you can see it doesn't look so good. It doesn't look so cinematic at this point. For some reason, that wow factor that we had beforehand is just gone. It's not there anymore. And the reason for that is pretty obvious, which is that the asset we used in the background is the same asset that we used in the foreground as well. If I'll split this window, you can see that the mountains that we have in the background are same as the mountains in the front, which obviously technically makes sense because we copied the mountain in the front and then we created a multiple copies of that mountain and then we placed it here and here as well. Okay. But the problem is that by using the same asset in the foreground and in the background, that cinematic feel of the shot is just gone. Now, please don't confuse background and foreground with respect to this character. Now, I'm fully aware that both of these front and rear mountains are acting as a background with respect to the character, but when I compare them with each other, these mountains are in the background if we reference these assets in the front. So now that we know that why this shot doesn't look so good, what I'm gonna do in here is to go into Fab Asset Library and download a few cliffs or some very steep surfaces from Quixel Megascans. By replacing these mountains with those assets, not only we'll have different assets for the background and foreground mountains, but the viewer depth or the cavities inside those cliffs are gonna give us some very cinematic results as well. So what I'm gonna do in here is to go into Fab. I'm gonna go into 3D, Nature and Plants, Rocks and Stones. I'm gonna type in Quixel and I'm gonna scroll down and look for a few assets that we can use in here. I think this one looks good. I'm gonna quickly add this thing into the project. I'm gonna save everything. Let's go back into Fab and I'm gonna scroll down and let's see if we can find something else. You can also use this one if you want. I'm gonna open this one and yeah, it looks good, but let's see if we can find something else. You can also use this one. This one looks good as well. Let's add this to the project. Let's save this asset and I'm gonna go back into Fab. And let's see if we can find something else. I think this one looks good as well. I'm gonna save this one as well and go back to Fab again. And let's see. Yeah, this one looks good as well. You can use this one as well if you want. Uh, okay. Let's download this one as well. Let's save this one as well and go back to Fab. And I'm gonna download a few more of these. Maybe this one as well. Yeah, I think I already downloaded this one. So let's scroll down and see. Yeah, maybe this one. Let's save this and go back to Fab again. And let's see. Let's see if we can find more of these. Mhm. Yeah, I think this one looks pretty good. I'm gonna save this one as well, and let's just download a couple of more assets and then start to build up the scene, okay? You can also search for clips. I'm gonna type in clips in here and let's see what comes up. And as you can see, we have some various assets in here as well. I think this one looks good as well. So I'm gonna add this thing to the project and save everything. I think now we have enough assets to build up the scene. So I'm gonna split this window, and I'm gonna go into the 3D folder and simply enable the static mesh builder so that we know which one is which. And what I'm gonna do in here is to um, bring, let's say, let's try this one. Of course, I'm gonna scale this thing down because this looks pretty huge at this point. So I'm gonna bring this thing down here, and let's see how this thing looks like if we move this thing on Y. Uh, Maybe just about there. And I'm gonna rotate this thing like so. Uh, Maybe not. Maybe bring this thing somewhere around here. And I'm gonna rotate this thing like so, or maybe not. And I'm gonna bring this thing down and place it just about there. I'm gonna rotate this, and let me enlarge this window so that I have a little bit of idea how things look like in the camera preview. Yeah, I'm gonna bring this thing up on Z and rotate this thing. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good at this point. Okay, so let's bring in another asset. Let's try this one. I'm gonna bring this into the scene and I'm gonna scale this thing up. And let's see where we can put in this one. I'm gonna rotate this thing like so. And I think just to add a little bit of variation, should put it this way. Not sure if this is gonna look good, but I'm gonna try it anyway. Maybe not here. Um, Perhaps around here. I'm gonna bring this thing here and place it just about there. I'm gonna rotate this thing, scale fractionally scale this thing up. Yeah, okay. You don't need to worry about the color scheme at this point. Of course, we're gonna fix that as well down the road, but for now, I'm just focusing on placing these assets. I'm gonna create a copy, and I think I should place this thing maybe just about there. Let's move ahead in the sequencer. I'm gonna save everything, and I'm gonna rotate this thing. Maybe place it just about there. Perhaps a little bit of rotation on Z. Okay, and um, yeah, I'm gonna delete this, and let's do this thing in a sequence. So, maybe this one. No, this one's pretty small. Yeah, let's try this one instead. I'm gonna scale this thing up and I'm gonna rotate it like so and place this thing just about there. Maybe fractionally scale this thing up and I think I should place it just around here. Yeah. Let's see what happens if I hide this mountain. Yeah, I think maybe just oops. Maybe just about there. Okay. And yeah, let's bring in another one and going to scale this thing up. There's it just about there. Scale it up. And no, it doesn't look good at all. So I'm just gonna remove it straight up. To be honest, I don't like this one either, so I'm just gonna delete it. Let's create a copy of this one instead. And rotate this thing like so. And there's it here. Okay. Let's try this one. And I'm gonna move ahead on the sequencer. And maybe bring this thing just about there. I'm gonna hide the mountain. And let's see how this thing looks like. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I don't see any problems in here. Yeah, let's move ahead on the sequencer and I think I should add a little bit of variation in here. Let's bring in this one. Sorry, that's a mountain. So let's try this one. Yeah, I think I can use this one to add a little bit of variation. Yeah, this thing looks good. I'm gonna add one. Let me hide this asset. Okay, and let's find something else. Uh, yeah, let's try this one as well. Is that the same asset? Yeah, it's the same. Okay, let's try this one. Yeah, this one's different. And I think I should scale this thing a little bit down and place it just about there. Okay, let's move ahead on the sequencer. Yeah, we're gonna maybe yeah, we're gonna also use this one in here to add a little bit of variation. So of course we're gonna deal with the color scheme later on, but for now I think I should place this thing here. I'm gonna bring this thing down, scale it up, and place it just about here. Maybe perhaps a little bit over. Yeah, okay. Let's now bring in this one and let's bring this thing just about there. We have this one as well. Maybe perhaps just about there. Maybe no. Nope. Let's see. I'm gonna bring this one in here. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna bring this thing out here and not sure. Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on this area as well. So let's place it just about here. I'm gonna bring this thing a little bit forward and yeah, I think it looks good. Just have to move this thing down, see, and then scale it up and then bring this thing just about there. I'm gonna hide this mountain and let's see how this thing looks like. Yeah, okay, I think it looks good. Okay. I'm gonna have a better idea if I press Control H, hide this landscape and hide all of the front mountains. Okay. Now let's see how this thing looks like. Yeah, I'm gonna need a few of these in here as well. So I'm gonna bring out this one. Yeah, this one is just so tiny. I don't want to use that. Okay, I'm gonna rotate this thing, scale it down. Bring this thing a little bit down here. And yeah, so the scene looks good, but I think what's missing in here is the variation. Okay, so we're gonna have to add this, adding a few more assets. Let's bring in this one. Maybe perhaps somewhere around here. I'm gonna scale this thing up and move this thing just about there. No, it's not gonna work so well. Let's bring this one. Um, okay, we're gonna have to fill this area as well. So let's bring in this one in here. I bring this thing down here. Rotate this thing and place it just about there. Okay, maybe bring this thing a little bit up on the seat. Yeah. Okay, so I think it looks good. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Let me enlarge the camera view and yeah, I think now we have a little bit better idea. So this is what I was talking about. You can see this visual depth and cavities that we have on these cliffs. If I move this playhead, you can see that we have some seriously high detail assets in here. We have these cavities inside these cliffs and the visual depth as well, which makes the look of the shot a lot more cinematic. Okay. So this is how you can bring in a very crisp and very cinematic feel to your shot. As you can see, if I move to frame number 1 and let me just select all these assets and move them to a different folder. I'm gonna rename this as clips and let me close all these folders. If I now hide these cliffs and add the front mountains, you can see that these mountains just don't have that kind of visual depth or cavities to make the shot very cinematic. But if I just replace these mountains with these cliffs that we have in here, you can see that we have some seriously good looking assets in here. Now, I'm fully aware that if I add a little bit of depth of field in this shot, these teeny tiny details that I'm spending so much time on are going to look completely different. But still, your shot is going to look a whole lot better if you use something that has a little bit of depth, visual depth, or some cavities or something like that. Okay. Let me demonstrate this. If I check this box and just bear with me now and adjust these camera settings. I know that you're eagerly waiting for me to discuss these camera settings, but please bear with me for 2 to 3 more lessons and then we'll discuss the camera settings, okay? Now I'm gonna uncheck this box and I'm gonna change the aperture to let's say 5. And you can see even after adding the depth of field, these cavities and the visual depth of these assets really come in handy for our shot. So that's it for this lesson. And in the next lesson, we're gonna adjust the material instances of these clips, okay? So I'll see you guys in the next one.